We are talking about computer science and the search for new medicine. I'd like to introduce you right now to Lei Li, Language Technologies Institute, Carnegie Mellon University School of Computer Science. Lei, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today.
Thank you for hosting me.
Tell me a little bit about your job and what you're doing at CMU.
I'm a computer scientist working on artificial intelligence and machine learning. The type of job I do is mostly research on developing novel algorithms using data to develop autonomous software that can develop intelligence to smart tasks like our humans. The particular problems I'm interested in generative algorithm, generative models that can generate text, generate image, generate new content, including generating new molecules for drug purpose.
It must be very rewarding to be working on solving problems that can benefit humanity.
Yes, exactly. The reason I started working on molecule generation and molecule design for drug purpose was I started around 2020. So I was attending a workshop, a conference in MIT. That was right before COVID. So in February, well, at that time there was a COVID in China, but in US there wasn't too many cases yet. So I was able to attend the conference in person, and the conference was talking about molecule design and drug discovery and manufacturing using AI. I was right in there talking about all this, and I wasn't working on anything yet, but I was listening to all those advanced research at that time. And right after the conference, I received an email saying, "Oh, someone attended the conference, got COVID. So are you affected?" I fortunately enough, I didn't got affected by that. But then that was a moment I realized, it's very important. It's a very important topic. And also AI can play a big role in this area. That can be really beneficial for all humans.
Well, I mean, look, that's when, mRNA leapt into the basic public space. And as something that we realized was, recently programmable, this is effectively what you're working on in a different capacity. So take me through this. What is it that you're doing in the space right now?
Talking about like biomedicine, this is a huge space. If we talk about pharmaceutical research, the path or the effort to develop effective drug takes a lot of effort, from basic research, trying to identify the target for disease, and then trying to identify some molecule that can cure this particular target, bind to the target, and be effective in our human body while not being toxic to our human body. And then after that, we need to do a clinical trial, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then manufacture it to be cost effective and delivery to the market. So the whole process can take over 10 years with 1 billion to even 10 billion US dollars to develop one effective drug. So that's a very long duration. And our goal is to accelerate certain steps in the procedure. In particular, we want to accelerate the design and search of these molecules before clinical trial. And after clinical trial, it's really, we have to do the clinical, we have to have the real patient to trial these molecules. But before that, it also takes several years to find an effective drug candidate. So our goal is to use AI to accelerate this process so that instead of taking several years, we can just use our high-performance computer, GPUs, use the same AI algorithms that we are using for natural language processing, computer vision, to find those molecules that can be potentially effective for certain disease target, while satisfy certain chemical property we want, like it should be solutable in our human body. It's not toxic to our human body. It should bind well to a particular target for the disease. It should be easy to manufacture and synthesize this molecule in the lab and in factory.
This is a very interesting point that you bring up. I was a health reporter in the year 2000, and they were talking about the concerns over R&D for drug development. This is 24 years ago, potentially bankrupting our system for all of the reasons you just outlined. And it's still a factor. And now we have this interesting work going on in AI and ML that is able to very much more quickly, this is in its infancy, start pulling apart and finding these new molecules. But what I don't understand is how NLP works. Is it because of how it looks in sort of space and time? Why is natural language processing a part of something like this to help discover these new molecules? Can you help me understand that?
That's great. So if we, so there are different kinds of drug molecules. Usually when we are talking about target-based drug design, we are referring to small molecule. Those are the molecules with below, let's say, 50 or 100 heavy atoms other than hydrogen. So like carbon, for example. So if we think about the potential space of all possible molecule with just 50 heavy atoms, so it can be, it's a very large number. It's maybe more than the number of sand on Earth. So the rough estimate is 10 to 30. That's a one. After that, we have like 30 zeros. So this is a huge space, and these are all possible molecules. But it doesn't mean we can all synthesize all these molecules, and doesn't mean all these molecules can be effective. We want to find from this very large space, very tiny portion, those are the promising candidates that can be potentially effective for certain disease. And the way we represent these molecules, those are small molecules. So the way we represent them, we can use two ways to represent them. First, we can write them as a chemical formula. It's just like a string. So we can write it just like an English sentence. It's like letter. Instead, we have a different letter system in this chemical language, chemical string. So we can use the same way we are modeling natural language, modeling our English sentences. So we are modeling these English character sequences. We can use the same algorithm to model these chemical atom sequences. And we can develop the same generative AI algorithm, such as this variational autoencoder and the transformer, which is behind ChatGPT. So we can use exactly the same large language model to model the molecules. The slight difference is for molecule, it's not only sequence, we also have graph, because these atoms, they are binding to each other, they have some bond, they form a graph, they have 3D shapes as well, they have some geometry as well. So we want to model their geometry. So for that purpose, we need to use a second type of model called graph neural network. So right now, many models, including our own models, are based on a combination of transformer, which is modeling the sequence, and graph neural network, which is modeling the geometry. Combination of the two, we can better model this molecule sequence and their geometry. Then we can find from this very large space to generate those effective molecule candidates.
My mind is blown. Let me start with that. When you first realized that this was successful, that you were able to effectively discover new molecules by combining these two particular types of machine learning and AI and potentially reduce the amount of time, was this an aha moment, or was this like a slow burn? You realized it was working and had potential. Was there a moment when you knew we're really onto something here?
We got a lot of insight from earlier research, both from our own group and also from other teams like DeepMind. They have worked on the AlphaGo. It's also very similar problem. They want to search best gaming strategy in the game of Go. If you consider the possible play strategies in the game, it's 3 to 360. That's also very large space. So we are searching in the similar space, in the chemical space. And in their problem, they can use reinforcement learning, generative AI to effectively find the winning solution, even better than the best human champion. So that's actually the moment we got some inspiration. We think it's possible. We do have a very large search space, and a lot of the space even containing those molecules that never experiment, never tested in the lab environment. We don't know yet. We never synthesize those, but we can possibly use this algorithm, AI algorithm, from this large space to effectively find a path to search for the most effective molecule.
I love that you mentioned scientific collaboration effectively. Collaboration has been a theme across every one of these interviews that I've done, and I can see how attacking the problem both from a structure of these molecules as well as a function of these molecules is what will ultimately hopefully deliver better therapies in the end for people. How difficult is it to build these models? I feel like this particular field of study is relatively new in the big scheme of things. How challenging is it to build these?
It is very challenging. The most challenging part is first we need to find the right model architecture to represent this molecule. So I mentioned the small molecule, but there are also larger molecule we need to model as well, like peptide, protein, DNA, RNA as well. Usually for drug, for disease target, a target is usually a protein. So we need to model this protein, the target as well. The problem for small molecule drug design is given a target, let's say, for example, Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's is a particularly difficult disease because we don't know too much about its target. We have some suspect candidate for the targets, but not confirmed yet. For those targets, usually those targets are protein. We want to find some small molecule this molecule can be found from a molecule database. This is what this pharmaceutical company are doing. Usually they have a very large database with, say, 100 million molecules. But this database is only a small portion of the much larger whole possible molecule space we can search for. Then we want to find from those large spaces a small molecule that can fit into the target. This is called binding. For binding, usually there should be a pocket on the protein. This pocket has certain shape, which means our small molecule should have some certain shape as well, so that it can fit into that pocket, so that it can bind together to behave with the ideal desired function in our human body. And if we want to develop an effective molecule using AI, we need to have data to train our AI model. For new disease target like Alzheimer's disease or many other cancers, we don't have much collected data from the lab environment. So we possibly have some measured molecule and protein binding affinity, like how effective they are, and the strength of their binding. But we only have a few. With very small data or even no data, we need to train an AI model that can effectively generate those molecules. So that's a key challenge. That means we need to have the right model architecture to represent the molecule, represent the protein, represent their binding as well. We need to have efficient sample-efficient training algorithms so that they can work well with small data. We want to develop models that can effectively tell the function between the small molecule and disease target, tell their chemical properties. And we need to effectively synthesize those molecules to tell whether a particular molecule can be synthesized or not. If it's from the data already know database, we know how to synthesize them. But if we generate a new kind of molecule that has never been synthesized before, we also need to develop algorithm to generate the synthesizer steps so that we can synthesize it in the chemical lab.
Do you think, given everything you've described across the process, and that process you just described is the new drug discovery that can take 10 years and $1 billion from discovery to execution. Do you think in your crystal ball, which is not how scientists tend to like to think, that this could be a process that could almost to completion be run by AI and algorithms ultimately?
I would say it's this process is it's always a human AI interaction process, like collaborative process. Of course, we need a advanced AI algorithm. We need computer scientists in this procedure, but we also need a domain expert, which are those chemistry, pharmaceutical expert, and also lab scientists. So who really have the domain knowledge about the particular disease and the target, and then they can use these AI tools in their daily drug development life cycle.
You mentioned the key challenge, obviously, in getting good data. Again, a common theme across all of the AI ML discussion that we have had here. How do you get ahead of that challenge? How are you hoping to tackle that and grow these data sets to train these models?
Yeah, this is a great challenge. So first, we need to collaborate. So we are calling for open science, like collaborative research, so that we can team up with like other universities like MIT or other places, and also industry, these pharmaceutical companies, so that we can work collaboratively to the extent that maybe they can share some data, and not really like for commercial purpose, but for research purpose, so that we can push forward the research, and we can potentially collaborate with, for example, CDC and NIH to build a common consortium to so each of these party will contribute a little bit of data to the data repository, so that collaboratively we can use the data to train a bigger model. I can see that's already happening now. For some domain, for example, there's a very large protein database that's kept being collected for over several decades, protein data bank, PDB data. So we are using that to develop our protein models as well. So it's highly effective. Yes, yeah, right. So this data is very important, and I'm looking forward to collaborate with more, especially from industry partners as well.
Lei, what's the best part of your job?
Oh, the best part of my job. I think the excitement is from the moment. I think that there are two, like I feel really excited about. One is I can turn my algorithm into some real findings. Like so recently we just published 2 papers on protein design, and we are pushing this into synthesize the proteins that found using our algorithm and test that in the lab. We are working with our partners in chemistry department of the University of California in Santa Barbara. And we are very close to synthesize this new protein, and we are very excited about to see this algorithm actually work and can be effective in real biomedical purpose. So that's one moment I'm very excited. The other moment is I'm always enthusiastic to work with students. I have 2 students graduating this year, and the moment they defend their thesis and they become real PhD, I feel really proud of them. I think that's our contribution as an educator and as a researcher at university.
Is there anything I'm not asking you? There's a million things, but is there something big that I should be asking you that I didn't?
Other than this small molecule, we are also working on protein design, which I also find very interesting and exciting. In particular, recently, Google DeepMind just published their AlphaFold 3 paper on predicting the structures for protein and molecule complex. We are working on slightly different problem. We are working on protein design, which is given a particular function, we want to design this protein so that it will have this desired function. For example, it can be a protein that emits this green fluorescent light when it's attached to a certain biomolecule target. Another example is designing enzymes that can be used in biochemical reactions so that it can accelerate the reaction and manufacture the biochemical materials. So we are using AI algorithm, generative AI algorithm, to design this protein. Our key idea here is we are designing not just their sequence, we are designing their sequence and their structure, protein structures together. So we are using this core design approach so we can design better proteins with desired function.
I want to talk a little bit about the, I guess, luminescence, because this would be a situation where you could in real time determine if a therapy is working, correct? I mean, that is when you're talking about, cells lighting up, I've seen this in mouse models where they're trying to determine if course A or course B is effective in treatment. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, exactly. So this can be used to tell whether a certain biological pathway is activated or deactivated, so that we can identify what goes wrong, and where it goes wrong, we can identify the biological target, and then we can design certain drug molecule for that purpose.
Lei, I really appreciate your time. Lei Li, thank you very much for your time and perspective.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Does Compute, the podcast that examines how computer science is building useful stuff that works. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Steph Stricklen.